what we think is the difference between an unenlightened person and an enlightened person is that the enlightened person has attained something which the unenlightened person has not. And if you want to be very distinct about that, you can say that it is the body of enlightenment inside oneself. So how can one understand the Four Noble Truths? Well, you can't understand it by intellect on a very mundane level, but you must be equipped with something which allows you to understand that, to see through to the meaning of the Noble Truths. And in this particular case, we'd say it's the body of enlightenment inside ourselves. And clues to us are left in the scriptures that this is in fact true. For example, the Lord Buddha had a conversation with one of his disciples who was very enamored by his physical appearance, because the Lord Buddha himself was very beautiful to the eye. He had perfectly proportioned body according to the what we call the 32 signs of the great man. And this disciple of his called Vakali used to follow him everywhere and spy on him, because it gave him great pleasure to see the Buddha. He felt joy every time he saw the Buddha. And eventually the Buddha, by banishing him to a place where he could no longer spy on the Buddha anymore. And he was so put in so much sorrow by the fact he couldn't see in the Buddha anymore that he wanted to commit suicide. So he was positioned on the edge of a cliff and was about to jump to his death, when the Buddha created a vision of himself to appear in front of Vakali, teaching him, "He who sees the Dhamma sees me. He who sees me sees the Dhamma." So this means that seeing the historical Buddha in all his glory, with all the 32 signs of his physical body, was not seeing the Dhamma. But the real Buddha must have been something deeper than that. So the real Buddha is not his physical body, but something deeper, which is the body of enlightenment, by implication. Whoever sees the body of enlightenment sees the Dhamma. Whoever sees the Dhamma sees that body of enlightenment. So this is the difference between Siddhartha the prince and Siddhartha the Buddha, is the fact that he attained something different. And this thing which he attained allowed him to understand the nature of reality in its entirety. When we see the Buddha in this way, not just on the surface anymore, but at the very essence of what it was to become a Buddha, then we realize that this experience is not restricted just to the Buddha alone. But again, like the concept of enlightenment, this is something which is open to every person to attain. In fact, according to the tradition left behind for us by the great abbot of Wat Pak Nam, we have this seed of enlightenment inside all of us, but rather like an underground well which has not yet been discovered, or which has not yet been reached by an artesian well. If we have not reached it, it's of no use to us. It's only when we can attain to it, or we can get down as far as it, then we are able to draw on it and get benefit from it. So this is also found in the Mahayana teachings as well, but it's interesting that within the Theravada tradition, the great abbot of Wat Pak Nam talked about this experience, this essence of enlightenment within every being. When we're trying to meditate, in fact, we are reaching towards this body of enlightenment inside ourselves. Because if we can reach it, then the body of enlightenment is something we can use as a tool to examine about the nature of reality in a way which is not biased or limited by our physical makeup, but which can see beyond that. Something which is like a platform which is so objective that it's not shaken even by looking at things from one lifetime to another, or from one realm to another. So this is something very special, which if we're talking about the triple gem on this level, if we're talking about taking refuge in the triple gem on this experiential level, it no longer means something intellectual anymore. It's It's not merely a rite of passage anymore, but it means attaining something in oneself. In fact, in the Pali language, we say Saranam gacchami, I go to the Buddha for refuge. So it's as if there is some movement towards whatever this nature of Buddhahood is. And our teacher says that it is moving inwards on the central axis until we can attain Buddhahood inside ourselves. This is what is really going for refuge. We don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to go to the temple. We don't have to go to India. But we go inwards on the inner axis in order to attain the Buddha inside ourselves, i.e. the Buddha Ratana, which is like the body of enlightenment. It's like a Buddha which is of living crystal inside ourselves. If we attain that, then we attain to a certain degree some part of the enlightenment of the Lord Buddha. On this level of meaning, when we talk about Dhamma, then it is the wisdom which is encapsulated, embodied within this body of enlightenment inside ourselves. Sometimes it's described as a sphere of Dhamma, because often it's spherical in shape, it's spherical at the center of the Dhammakaya itself. And on this sort of level, the sangha is on a deeper level whatever protects, whatever nourishes this Dhamma at the center of the body of enlightenment. So this third way of describing the triple gem, or what we are taking refuge in as the triple gem, is in fact something which is very relevant to us, is pretty timeless, and is something which is available to all, not just to monks who have to become ordained to become a member of the sangha. Even girls, even novices, even lay people have the chance to become unified or take refuge in the triple gem directly by their personal experience on this level of definition. So it's this last level of definition of the triple gem which we are very interested in, especially when we are putting so much effort into our practice. Because although we may be monks on the outside, but to become pure on the inside, we need to attain this triple gem within ourselves as well, so that we are sangha both on the outside and on the inside as well. And this is why some lay people may meditate better than monks. Some lay people may have even a better understanding of what it is to be a monk, because they have it from the inside. And you ask why people like the founder of our temple, Kunyai, could have such a great knowledge of the scriptures and of Buddhist teachings, even though she was illiterate. Then this is the answer, because she had contact the whole of the time with the triple gem within herself. And this gave her the answers to the questions which she was searching for, because it was like she had a permanent hardwired connection with the triple gem inside herself, the same body of knowledge which also the Buddha drew upon to teach to his disciples and to found this religion of ours. So often in Buddhism, people are hampered by what they see as a contradiction of the proverb, be a refuge unto yourself, and take refuge in the triple gem. Because on the first two levels of meaning, instead of taking refuge in yourself, you're taking refuge in something outside yourself. This Buddha image, this pagoda, this Bodhi tree, or a personage who passed away 2,500 years ago. In such a sense, this would be like a contradiction. But if we understand the triple gem on the deeper level of experience, suddenly we realize that because the triple gem is part of us, it's the deepest part of us, then this is really what we are going to for refuge. We're taking refuge in ourselves. But in the deepest part of ourselves, which is no longer Nicholas, it's no longer Neil, it's no longer David anymore, but it is something which at the core is the same in everybody, which is the nature of enlightenment itself, which is so pure and free of defilements that it can't be owned by anyone anymore. True self, in effect, but we find it's not self at all. But this is why taking refuge in oneself and taking refuge in the Triple Gem is not a contradiction. In fact, it's the same thing, but it's two ways of describing the same thing. If we can attain the Triple Gem inside ourselves, then we attain something timeless, which will help us even beyond death. And within our own tradition, it's especially significant because once people start to attain the Triple Gem inside themselves, it's like there's a knock-on effect. Especially as more and more people attain Dhammakaya, then it becomes easier for others to attain Dhammakaya as well. It's like we're reversing the trend of deterioration, which I mentioned ever since lesson 2, in the downturn of the quality of life, which is mentioned in the Aganya Sutta. This is the real key to reversing the effects. Once this starts to happen, especially as a certain critical mass of people is attained, who can attain Dhammakaya, then the climate will start to change in a better way. Pollution will be less. People will forget what they were fighting about when they're having wars with one another, because they will look beyond that to see fellowship in the world. They won't see themselves as separate from other people. They won't have the reason to fight just because someone has drawn a border between their country and the next one, because they see that inside everyone is all the same. This is really the reason why our abbot likes to teach Dhammakaya. If you ask what's in it for him to teach Dhammakaya to other people in the world, he doesn't do it just to get more disciples or more followers. Why should he bother to teach people who are not Buddhist about meditation? Well, the reason is that he hopes that if people understand more about meditation, one day they too will attain, and they will understand things for themselves. So it's not our idea to convert people to Dhammakaya or convert people to Buddhism, but simply to give as many people in the world the possibility to understand the nature of peace inside, the nature of reality which they can understand through that peace which they attain inside. And then world peace will take care of itself. So this is really the big picture of why in our own temple we have so many outreach projects. Instead of simply being content with, oh, well, I've attained Dhammakaya now, I just go and sit under a tree and be happy. But we feel that we must give something back to society, because this is the key also to making sure our bigger environment, our wider environment, can come to peace and harmony as well. So what I've talked about today is, by way of summary, building on all the other things I've talked about over the last 10 days, whether it be the subjects of death and rebirth and karma. It all is linked together with this final thing which we must try to do, which we should expend our effort in doing, which is to attain the Triple Gem within ourselves, to take refuge in the Triple Gem inside ourselves, and to help to spread this for the benefit of others in the world. 10 sessions is in fact a very short summary of what we have in Buddhism. In a way, it doesn't really do justice to Buddhism at all, because there's so much more which I haven't talked about. If you're here for 2 months or 3 months, then there's plenty more to talk about without repeating myself, about how Buddhism can be applied to all sorts of things, about the nature of the defilements in the mind. But we have only a limited time. But what I hope you've got from listening to some of the things we've been talking about on this course is at least to whet your appetite to want to study more. As I mentioned in the beginning, the knowledge in the scriptures passed down to us is not just a book like this, something like the Bible, but it's a whole bookcase. The Buddha was alive for many years, and he preached for as many as 45 years, every day, day and night. So the teachings which have been preserved are very complete. He taught on nearly every subject to people of nearly every sort of walk of life. He preached to monks, he preached to lay people. And if you can, you should take the opportunity to read some of the Buddhist scriptures for yourself, so that you get more than just someone else's opinion about what they thought the Buddha taught. If you start to read it for yourself, I think you feel much more intimate with how the Buddha taught, the way he taught, the way he used words when he was teaching.